Welcome back to the Cheating Tales Lab. First of all, a huge thank you for helping us reach 5,000 subscribers. Thank you all for your amazing support. To celebrate, we're launching our second channel, Infidelity Tales Lab, where you'll get one-day early access to all our stories plus exclusive, original cheating wife stories you won't find anywhere else. You can subscribe now by clicking the link in the description or the pinned comment, or simply search for Infidelity Tales Lab on YouTube. Don't miss out. Subscribe and listen to exclusive stories. You won't regret subscribing. Now let's begin the story. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the immaculate kitchen of the Clark residence as Nathan observed the caterers setting up for his son Spencer's graduation party. Standing at 6 feet 2 inches with steel gray eyes and the composed demeanor that had served him well through countless surgeries, Nathan reached for his coffee while maintaining a careful watch on the scene unfolding before him. The head caterer approached him with a clipboard. "Dr. Clark, where would you like the seafood station?" "The west side of the pool area should work well," Nathan replied, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had earned him respect in both the operating room and boardroom. "Just ensure it's under the awning to avoid direct sunlight." Through the kitchen window, he caught sight of his wife Marilyn directing the decoration team. 25 years of marriage had taught him to read the subtle tells in her movements, the slightly too precise gestures, the artificial brightness of her smile. At 52, Marilyn still turned heads with her tennis-toned figure and carefully maintained appearance, but Nathan had long since learned to see past the polished surface. "Nathan?" Marilyn's voice carried that familiar edge of urgency as she swept into the kitchen, her designer sundress rustling. "Could you help with the decorations inside? The living room still needs attention." Before Nathan could respond, his brother Howard emerged from the pool area, his casual demeanor just a shade too calculated. "I've got the backyard handled," Howard added quickly, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "Those string lights won't hang themselves." Nathan nodded, maintaining his neutral expression even as his hand brushed against the phone in his pocket. The device silently recorded, a practice he'd adopted over the past year on the advice of Clay Maloney, the ex-military security consultant who'd first raised concerns about irregular patterns in Marilyn's behavior and suspicious financial transactions. "Dr. Clark?" Sarah Chun, one of the nurses from his practice, approached with a stack of paperwork. "I hate to interrupt, but these surgical schedules need your approval before Monday." "Of course, Sarah." Nathan gestured toward the kitchen island, noting how Marilyn's smile tightened at the interruption. "Let's review them now." As Sarah spread out the documents, Nathan caught the flash of irritation that crossed Howard's face. His brother had always been the more personable one, content with his role as hospital administrator while Nathan pursued his surgical career. Now, watching Howard's hand brush against Marilyn's arm in what might appear to be an innocent gesture, Nathan reflected on how that congeniality had served as the perfect cover. "Dad!" Spencer's voice carried across the kitchen as he bounded in, all 6 feet of youthful energy barely contained in his graduation suit. "Can you help me with something?" "It's about the medical school application." Nathan studied his son's face, so like his own, or so he'd always thought. "What's on your mind?" "It's the personal statement," Spencer began, leading Nathan toward his study. "I want to mention the volunteer work at the hospital, but I'm not sure how to frame it." Through the study window, Nathan had a clear view of the pool area. He watched as Howard reappeared, moving with too much familiarity in a space that wasn't his home. The security cameras Clay had installed 6 months ago would be capturing every moment. "Spencer," Nathan said carefully, "why don't you tell me about the hospital volunteering?" "All of it." His son shifted uncomfortably. "What do you mean?" "The hours you logged when I was in surgery. The time you spent with Uncle Howard." Spencer's phone buzzed, his girlfriend Katie's name flashing on the screen. "I should take this," he muttered, relief evident in his voice as he stepped out of the study. Nathan returned to the kitchen, timing his movements precisely. The caterers had moved outside, leaving the space momentarily empty. Through the window, he watched as Howard pulled Marilyn close behind a decorative trellis, their kiss speaking of years of practiced deception. Nathan's hand tightened on his coffee cup, but his expression remained impassive. 20 years of performing high-stakes surgery had taught him the value of steady hands and careful timing. Marilyn's laugh carried across the yard, sharp and triumphant. 20 years of family vacations, and you really thought we were just close in-laws, she was saying to Howard, unaware of Nathan's presence at the window. The best cover is hiding in plain sight, Howard replied, his hand lingering on her waist. Nathan was always too busy saving lives to notice what was happening in his own home. They turned, finally spotting Nathan at the window. Instead of shame or guilt, Marilyn's expression showed only arrogant satisfaction. "Well," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the open window, "I suppose the charade can finally end. Even the kids call him Daddy when you're not around." Nathan? Spencer appeared beside Nathan, his face a mix of defiance and guilt. "Sorry, Dad, but we had to choose sides a long time ago. Uncle Howard was always there while you were at the hospital. He came to my games, helped with homework." Nathan smiled, reaching into his jacket pocket where Clay's USB drive sat heavy with evidence. "Interesting choice," he said quietly, his tone making Spencer take an involuntary step back. "Let's discuss your definition of family." "Oh, please," Marilyn scoffed, striding into the kitchen with Howard close behind. "Are we really going to have a scene at Spencer's graduation party? How typically dramatic of you, Nathan." "Dramatic?" Nathan's voice remained level as he turned to face them. "I'd say 20 years of systematic deception is rather dramatic, wouldn't you, Howard? Although I suppose managing two families must have required quite the performance." Howard's face reddened. "You don't know what you're talking about. You were never here, always at the hospital, always in surgery. Someone had to be there for Marilyn, for Spencer. Someone had to help themselves to my family, you mean?" Nathan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "And my accounts? The offshore transfers were a nice touch. Did you think being hospital administrator meant I wouldn't notice the financial irregularities?" "You're delusional," Marilyn snapped, but her hand trembled as she reached for her wine glass. "Howard has been more of a husband and father than you ever were." "Has he?" Nathan removed his phone from his pocket, playing a recording. Howard's voice filled the kitchen, discussing account numbers and transfer dates with Marilyn. Spencer's face paled. "Mom? What's he talking about?" "Your mother and uncle have been very busy," Nathan said calmly. "But then, you've known that for years, haven't you, Spencer? Those summer internships at the hospital weren't just about padding your medical school application." "You bastard," Howard snarled, taking a step forward. "You've been spying on us?" "Gathering evidence," Nathan corrected. "There's a difference. Though I suppose ethics was never your strong suit, brother." Marilyn's laugh turned bitter. "And what are you going to do with this supposed evidence? Ruin your son's graduation party? Destroy our family's reputation?" "Our family?" Nathan's voice carried a dangerous edge. "No, Marilyn. This stopped being our family a long time ago. You made your choice." He turned to Spencer. "And so did you." "Dad, please," Spencer began, but Nathan cut him off. "Save it. The party's over." Nathan moved toward the door, his voice carrying clearly. "Enjoy your celebration. Tomorrow, we begin discussing consequences." The silence that followed him was broken only by the sound of Marilyn's wine glass shattering against the kitchen floor. Nathan walked to his car, his steps measured and calm. In his pocket, his phone continued recording, capturing the panicked conversation that erupted behind him. Clay was waiting in a black SUV across the street, his military training evident in his alert posture. "Everything recorded, Dr. Clark?" "Every word." Nathan slid into the passenger seat. "Contact Morrison. Tell him to prepare the legal documents for tomorrow morning. 8 a.m. sharp," Clay confirmed, starting the engine. "The security team will have the house monitored all night." Nathan nodded, watching through the tinted windows as Howard emerged from the house, gesturing angrily as he spoke on his phone. 20 years of betrayal would end with precision timing, just like every surgery Nathan had ever performed. "One more thing," Nathan added as they pulled away from the curb. "Contact the hospital board. I think it's time for an emergency meeting about financial irregularities in the administration." The next morning dawned clear and bright, a sharp contrast to the storm about to break. Nathan arrived at precisely 8 a.m., Morrison's leather briefcase in one hand and Clay's USB drive in the other. Marilyn answered the door in her silk robe, her careful makeup not quite hiding the signs of a sleepless night. What's this? Her hand trembled as she took the envelope Nathan held out. Divorce papers, he replied calmly, sliding the USB drive across the kitchen counter. And this contains 20 years of surveillance footage, phone recordings, and bank transfers. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the money moving to offshore accounts? You can't prove anything, Marilyn snapped, but her face had gone pale as she stared at the drive. Every family vacation, every business trip with Howard, Spencer's college fund transfers. It's all there. Nathan stood, straightening his suit jacket. You have 1 hour to leave the house. The locks change at 9. You can't do this. Marilyn's voice rose. This is my home. Was your home? Nathan corrected. Morrison will explain the temporary restraining order. I'd suggest reading it carefully, especially the part about electronic communications and financial transactions. I'll fight you, she hissed. Howard and I both will. You'll lose everything. Nathan paused at the door, looking back at the woman he'd once loved. No, Marilyn. You already lost everything. You just didn't know it until now. As he walked to his car, Nathan heard Marilyn's angry sobs through the open window, but his steps didn't falter. In the surgical theater, hesitation meant death. In life, he'd learned, it meant something worse, the slow death of dignity and self-respect. His phone buzzed, a text from Clay confirming that Howard had just received similar papers at his home. Nathan smiled as he started his car. The first incision had been made. Now it was time to excise the cancer that had grown in his life, with the same precision he'd used to save countless patients. The war was just beginning, but Nathan Clark had never lost a battle he was prepared for. And he'd been preparing for this one for a very long time. The morning sun cast harsh shadows across Ian McKinney's polished conference table as Howard paced the room. 1 week had passed since Nathan's devastating revelation, and the hospital administrator's usually confident demeanor had given way to barely contained panic. He has everything, Howard muttered, running his hands through his disheveled hair. The recordings, the transfers. Sit down, McKinney commanded, his reputation for aggressive divorce tactics evident in his shark-like smile. This isn't my first case involving surveillance. Your brother may think he's clever, but you don't know Nathan, Marilyn interrupted, her designer outfit failing to hide the strain of the past week. He doesn't make moves unless he's certain of the outcome. McKinney leaned forward, his expensive suit creaking. Then we change the game. Attack his reputation, his credibility. The controlling husband, obsessed with surveillance, fabricating evidence out of paranoia. The hospital board, Howard's eyes lit up. I've built relationships there for years. Nathan's always been the outsider, focused on his surgeries. Perfect. McKinney began typing on his laptop. I'll draft a statement suggesting psychological evaluation. Question his fitness to practice. Marilyn's laugh held a bitter edge. Nathan, unfit? He's performed more successful surgeries than any other doctor in the state. Success can feed obsession, McKinney countered. Howard, set up a board meeting. Make it seem like you're concerned about your brother's mental state. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for the following day. Howard stood before the gathered members, his performance carefully calibrated to project worried sincerity. Nathan's always been obsessed with control, Howard told the assembled board members, his voice carrying just the right note of reluctant concern. These accusations, they're fabrications born from his inability to handle Marilyn's independence. Dr. Wade Rhodes, the board chairman who'd been quietly supporting Howard's administrative decisions for years, nodded sympathetically. These are serious concerns, Howard. Perhaps a mandatory leave of absence. The boardroom door opened. Nathan walked in, Clay Maloney's imposing figure following with a laptop. Perfect timing. Nathan's voice cut through the murmurs. I was hoping to discuss some financial irregularities myself. Howard's face paled. This is a closed meeting. About my mental health? Nathan smiled, the expression reminiscent of a surgeon before making the first incision. Interesting timing, considering what Clay found in the hospital's auxiliary accounts. Clay connected the laptop to the presentation screen. Numbers began scrolling, followed by recordings. Howard's voice filled the room, discussing fund transfers with Wade Rhodes. Just move it through the equipment budget, Howard was saying. Nathan's too busy in surgery to notice. Rhodes' face turned ashen as his own voice appeared. The board audit won't catch it if we… I think, Nathan said into the silence that followed, we should discuss a different kind of leave of absence. The next few weeks unfolded like a carefully orchestrated surgery. Each revelation was timed for maximum impact, each piece of evidence deployed with precision. During a particularly tense deposition, Spencer sat across from Nathan, his expensive shirt wrinkled from hours of questioning. You don't understand, Dad, Spencer pleaded, his facade of defiance cracking. Mom and Uncle Howard said you'd destroy everyone if you ever found out. They said you were dangerous. Nathan studied the young man he'd raised, seeing now the subtle resemblances to Howard that he'd overlooked for years. No, son, they were the dangerous ones. And you chose their side. They needed help hiding the transfers, Spencer continued, his voice small. Just small things at first, when I was 15. Running errands, delivering documents. Fraud doesn't start with large crimes, Nathan replied, his tone clinical. It starts with small betrayals, justified by convenient lies. The legal proceedings revealed layers of deception that even Nathan hadn't anticipated. Marilyn had been systematically draining accounts since Spencer's 10th birthday. Howard had used his position as hospital administrator to cover financial irregularities that went beyond their affair. The evidence mounted, each revelation more damning than the last. During a settlement negotiation, Marilyn's mask of sophistication finally cracked. You're enjoying this, she spat across the conference table. Destroying everything we built. Everything you stole, Nathan corrected calmly. There's a difference. We had a life before you became obsessed with your career, she countered. Howard was there when you were playing hero in the operating room. Playing hero? Nathan's laugh held no humor. While I was saving lives, you were stealing from those same patients. The foundation funds, Marilyn. Did you think I wouldn't find those transfers? Howard slammed his hand on the table. You self-righteous bastard. You think you're better than everyone else, up in your surgical tower. Better? No. Nathan sliding a document across the table. Just more thorough. This is a complete audit of the hospital's charitable foundation. The board received a copy this morning. Howard's face went from red to white as he scanned the pages. You can't. The medical board received it too, Nathan continued. They're particularly interested in the cancer research funds. Tell me, Howard, how many trials were delayed because you diverted their funding? The investigation moved quickly after that. Howard's medical license was suspended pending a full review. Marilyn's carefully cultivated social circle evaporated as evidence of her manipulations became public. Spencer, his college fund frozen due to evidence of his involvement in the financial fraud, watched his carefully planned future crumble. Nathan's divorce proceedings moved with the same precision he brought to his surgeries. Each attempt by Marilyn to claim assets was met with documented evidence of her deception. Howard's efforts to maintain his position at the hospital collapsed under the weight of forensic accounting. You could show some mercy, Howard attempted during their final confrontation at the hospital. We're still brothers. Nathan's voice could have frosted glass. You betrayed my trust, stole from my patients, and corrupted my son. Biology doesn't excuse that. The patients were never at risk, Howard protested weakly. The funds were always. 6 months, Nathan cut him off. 6 months of delayed cancer trials because you diverted their funding. How many lives were affected by those delays, Howard? The hospital board's decision was unanimous. Howard's termination was followed by a referral to the state medical board for ethics violations. His career in hospital administration was effectively over. Marilyn's attempts to salvage her reputation fared no better. Her friends, many of them hospital board members' wives, turned their backs as evidence emerged of her systematic manipulation. I hear she tried to join the country club committee, Nathan overheard one nurse telling another. They wouldn't even take her application. After what she did to those charity funds, the second nurse replied. She's lucky she's not in jail. The final blow came when Nathan's lawyers revealed the extent of Spencer's involvement. The trust fund transfers, the falsified volunteer hours, The years of small betrayals that had grown into significant fraud. He was just a kid when they started grooming him, Clay observed during one of their strategy sessions. Old enough to know right from wrong, Nathan replied, reviewing another set of documents. Old enough to make choices. Within months, the war Nathan had prepared for was effectively over. Howard's medical license suspension was heading toward permanent revocation. Marilyn's divorce settlement left her with only what she brought into the marriage, which proved to be far less than she'd claimed. As Nathan sat in his office, reviewing the final settlement documents, he reflected on the precision with which everything had unfolded. Like a complex surgery, each step had been planned, each potential complication anticipated. His phone buzzed, a message from Clay about Howard's latest desperate attempt to salvage his career. Trying to claim rights to your research patents, the message read. Should I release the evidence about his attempted data theft? Nathan smiled, thinking of the backup files he'd maintained for years, documenting every suspicious access to his research databases. Release everything, he typed back. It's time to close this procedure. The sun was setting over the city as Nathan signed the final divorce decree. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, he could appreciate the completeness of the operation he'd just concluded. Some cancers required aggressive treatment, and he'd just excised one from his life with surgical precision. 3 years passed like well-planned surgical procedures, precise, methodical, and with predictable outcomes. Nathan Clark stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse overlooking the city, watching the sunset paint the skyline in shades of amber. His reflection showed a man who had emerged stronger from betrayal, his steel-gray hair now a distinguished silver at the temples, his posture that of someone who commanded respect rather than demanded it. The notification sound from his laptop drew his attention back to his desk, where the quarterly reports from his private practice showed numbers that would make any hospital administrator envious. Not that Howard would know. Nathan's former brother now worked at a small-town clinic in Nebraska, his medical career a shadow of its former glory. Dr. Clark? His assistant's voice came through the intercom. Dr. Hannah Reynolds is here for your 6 p.m. meeting. Nathan smiled, a genuine expression that had become more frequent in recent months. Send her in, Sarah. Hannah entered with the confident stride of someone who spent their days making split-second decisions in the trauma unit. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, her scrubs replaced by casual business attire that spoke of a woman who understood both operating rooms and boardrooms. Quarterly numbers look good, she noted, glancing at his screen, though I'm more interested in dinner. I've got an hour before I'm back on call. Their relationship had developed naturally over the past year, built on shared understanding of dedication and integrity. Hannah had been chief of trauma surgery when the truth about Howard's mismanagement of hospital funds came to light. Italian? Nathan suggested, reaching for his jacket. There's a new place downtown that... His phone buzzed with an email notification. The sender's name made him pause. Spencer Clark. I need to see you. It's important. Hannah read the message over his shoulder, her expression concerned. Are you going to respond? Yes, Nathan replied, his voice neutral. This was inevitable. The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Nathan sat behind his desk, watching Spencer approach through the office windows. His once son looked older than his 21 years, the expensive clothes replaced by worn jeans and a shabby jacket. I need help with college tuition, Spencer began without preamble, dropping into the chair across from Nathan. Mom and Howard can't. Before you continue, Nathan interrupted, opening his desk drawer to remove 2 sealed envelopes. Read these. Spencer's hands trembled slightly as he opened the first envelope. The DNA test results were clear, clinical in their devastation. The second envelope contained transcripts, years of recorded conversations between Spencer, Howard, and Marilyn, plotting their deceptions. Howard is your biological father, Nathan said quietly, watching the color drain from Spencer's face. Has been since before you were born. That's why you had to choose sides. You were always on his side. Dad. Spencer's face crumpled, the arrogance of graduation day long gone. I'm not your dad. I never was. That was your first betrayal, letting me believe I was. I didn't know until... Until when? Nathan's voice remained steady. When did you start helping them hide evidence? 15, wasn't it? Old enough to know right from wrong. Spencer slumped in his chair. Mom said you'd help with tuition. Said you wouldn't want your reputation damaged by having your son drop out of college. My reputation? Nathan's laugh held no warmth. My reputation is built on integrity, Spencer. Something you, Howard, and Marilyn never understood. Howard lost everything, Spencer protested. The clinic barely pays enough for them to survive. Mom had to sell her jewelry just. Actions have consequences. Nathan cut him off. Your mother's social circle evaporated because she stole from their charity foundations. Howard's medical license was suspended because he diverted cancer research funds. Your college fund was frozen because you helped them hide the evidence. These aren't tragedies, Spencer. They're justice. So that's it? You're just going to let your Spencer caught himself? Let me drop out of college? Nathan reached for another folder. These are the names of every cancer patient whose treatment was delayed because Howard diverted research funds. Read them. Understand what your real father did to people who trusted him with their lives. Spencer's hands shook as he scanned the list. I didn't know. You knew enough, Nathan replied. Now you know more. Consider it your final lesson from me. As Spencer left the office, Nathan felt no remorse. His phone buzzed with a message from Hannah about dinner plans. On his desk, a photo of his new charitable foundation's first scholarship recipients, all children of cancer patients, reminded him that family wasn't always about blood. That evening, over dinner at their favorite restaurant, Hannah watched him with understanding eyes. Spencer came by the trauma unit today, she said. Asked if I could talk to you about reconsidering. And I told him that integrity isn't negotiable. Hannah's smile was fierce. He didn't like that answer. Nathan nodded, appreciating once again how well she understood him. Their relationship had grown from mutual respect into something deeper, built on shared values rather than decades of lies. The next morning brought news that Howard and Marilyn had made one final attempt to claim part of Nathan's new medical patents. The attempt failed spectacularly when Nathan's lawyers revealed evidence of Howard's previous attempts to steal research data. They never learn, Clay Maloney commented, dropping the legal documents on Nathan's desk. Still trying to take what isn't theirs. Old habits, Nathan replied, signing the final restraining order that would prevent any future contact. How's the foundation doing? First round of scholarships went out last week. The board's impressed with how you've turned Howard's fraud into something positive. Nathan looked out over the city he now called home. The view from his office reminded him of how far he'd come from that afternoon by the pool, watching his world unravel. He'd lost a family built on lies but gained something more valuable, the truth about loyalty and the strength to stand alone rather than compromise his principles. Later that evening, dining with Hannah at his penthouse, Nathan realized something profound. She was discussing a complicated trauma case, her passion for saving lives matching his own dedication to his patients. Here was someone who understood that sometimes the best revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about rebuilding something stronger from the ashes of betrayal. You're quiet tonight, Hannah observed, pouring another glass of wine. Just thinking about choices, Nathan replied. And consequences. Regrets? She asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. No, Nathan said firmly. Just appreciation for truth. It's cleaner than comfortable lies. His phone buzzed one final time. A notification that Howard's attempt to appeal his license suspension had been denied. Nathan silenced the phone without reading the full message. Some chapters needed to stay closed. The city lights sparkled below, a testament to life moving forward. Nathan had rebuilt his world with the same precision he brought to his surgeries, cutting out the cancer of betrayal and ensuring it could never grow back. The emptiness of loss had been filled with something better. Integrity, purpose, and the knowledge that sometimes the strongest families were the ones you chose, not the ones you were born into. As Hannah discussed plans for expanding the Foundation's scholarship program, Nathan felt the last pieces of his old life fade into irrelevance. He had excised the cancer of betrayal from his life with surgical precision, and in its place, he had built something far more valuable, a life founded on truth, supported by integrity, and enriched by genuine connections. The price of betrayal had been high, but the rewards of honesty were proving to be worth every painful incision along the way. Epilogue: 5 years after the reckoning. The small-town clinic in Nebraska where Howard now worked barely resembled the prestigious hospital he once administered. The peeling paint and outdated equipment served as daily reminders of his fall from grace. At 58, his once commanding presence had deteriorated into that of a bitter man who treated routine cases of flu and minor injuries. "Dr. Andrews, your next patient is waiting," the receptionist called out, deliberately using Howard's mother's maiden name. After the scandal, he'd been forced to change it. The Clark name carried too much weight in medical circles, all of it negative. His office, a cramped room with fluorescent lighting, contained newspaper clippings he obsessively collected about Nathan's continued success. The most recent showed Nathan receiving a humanitarian award for his charitable foundation's work in providing medical care to underprivileged children. Marilyn, now showing every day of her 55 years, worked as a receptionist at a local dentist's office. Her designer clothes had been replaced by discount store finds, her once perfect manicures now chipped and self-maintained. The other wives in town whispered about her past, the story of her betrayal having followed them even to this remote corner of Nebraska. "Did you see the society pages?" Marilyn asked Howard that evening in their rented 2-bedroom apartment. "Nathan and Hannah's foundation just opened another free clinic. They're expecting their first child." Howard's hand trembled as he poured himself another drink. "Leave it alone, Marilyn." But she couldn't. The laptop screen showed photos from a recent charity gala. Nathan distinguished in a tuxedo, Hannah elegantly showing her pregnancy. The article detailed their work: 3 free clinics, a scholarship program for medical students from underprivileged backgrounds, and a research foundation focusing on pediatric cancer, funded partially by the settlement money from Howard's fraud case. Their own son, Spencer, had eventually completed his community college degree through night classes while working as a pharmacy technician. He tried reaching out to Nathan once more 2 years ago, sending a congratulatory email when Nathan and Hannah's wedding was announced. The email bounced back. Nathan's lawyers maintained a strict no-contact policy. Clay Maloney, whose security firm now handled all of Nathan's charitable organizations, had established a comprehensive monitoring system. Any attempts by Howard, Marilyn, or Spencer to approach Nathan or his new family resulted in immediate legal consequences. "Remember Sandra's wedding invitation?" Marilyn muttered, referring to her former best friend. The invitation had been returned unopened. Her once vast social circle had contracted to a few other disgraced individuals they'd met in Nebraska. Howard's ex-wife Linda had thrived after their divorce. She'd used her settlement to open a successful wellness center, her social media showing frequent trips to Europe and a new husband who looked at her with genuine devotion. She'd even been invited to Nathan and Hannah's wedding. The hospital board chairman, Wade Rhodes, had resigned in disgrace after Nathan's evidence exposed the full extent of the financial fraud. He occasionally saw Howard at medical conferences for small regional clinics, both men avoiding eye contact, their name tags displaying different surnames than the ones they'd worn in their prime. Sarachin, the nurse who'd worked with Nathan for years, had been promoted to chief nursing officer at his private practice. She took particular satisfaction in returning any messages from Howard or Marilyn with a form letter citing the no-contact policy. "We should never have tried to claim those patents," Marilyn said, closing the laptop. Their last attempt to grab at Nathan's success had resulted in their lawyer dropping them as clients and another hefty fine they were still paying off. Howard's medical license remained restricted, requiring annual reviews and limiting the procedures he could perform. The small-town clinic tolerated him because they were desperately understaffed, but his colleagues maintained a professional distance, the whispers about his past following him through the corridors. Meanwhile, Nathan and Hannah's life exemplified everything Howard and Marilyn had lost. Their private practice had expanded to 3 locations, each specializing in different aspects of surgery and trauma care. The charitable foundation, named after one of the cancer patients whose treatment had been delayed by Howard's fraud, provided hope to families facing medical crises. Clay's security reports, which he still maintained out of professional thoroughness, painted a pathetic picture of the conspirators' lives. Spencer worked double shifts to afford a small apartment, his dreams of medical school permanently shattered. He'd tried dating, but background checks by potential in-laws inevitably uncovered his past, ending relationships before they could develop. Marilyn's attempts to maintain appearances grew more desperate each year. Her hair dye couldn't quite cover the gray. Her makeup couldn't hide the bitter lines around her mouth. The local society wives excluded her from their events, her past making her a liability to their reputations. The final insult had come when Howard's mother changed her will before passing away, leaving her estate to a medical scholarship fund administered by Nathan's foundation. She'd included a letter, made public as part of the bequest, expressing her shame at Howard's actions and her hope that Nathan's work would help repair some of the damage her son had caused. Nathan and Hannah welcomed their daughter, Grace Integrity Clark, in the spring. The birth announcement in the medical journal included a note about a new pediatric wing being opened in her honor. Howard saw the announcement during his lunch break, his hands shaking so badly he spilled coffee on his worn dress shirt. The contrast between the lives they'd chosen could not have been starker. Nathan had built his success on integrity and dedication, while Howard and Marilyn's betrayal had earned them a harvest of consequences they couldn't escape. Every day brought fresh reminders of their fall. Rejected credit cards, unanswered social invitations, professional doors firmly closed. Clay's latest security report sat on Nathan's desk, untouched. He no longer needed to read about their struggles. His focus remained on the future, the expanding medical practice, the growing foundation, his new family built on trust rather than lies. The price of betrayal had been high, but only for those who had chosen to betray. Nathan's new life stood as testament to the power of integrity, while Howard and Marilyn's served as a cautionary tale whispered in hospital corridors and country club lounges. Some choices carry consequences that last a lifetime. In the end, their greatest punishment wasn't the loss of money or status. It was having to watch from a distance as Nathan built something far greater than what they had tried to steal, knowing they had no one to blame but themselves.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy the story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.